sometimes when you're working on a project, it forces you to either buy or make a tool to make that project work a little easier. So the project I'm working on, it doesn't have to have a bigger sanding disc, but I've always wanted like a 10 or 12-inch sanding disc machine, but I just don't have the room right now to hold it in the shop. What I currently have is just the standard 5-inch disc sander, belt sander combo, which works good on smaller items, but this is going to be a box, so I'm going to need a bigger sanding disc, or I'd like a bigger sanding disc. It would help make things smoother and sand a little bit more evenly. So instead of going out and buying, I mean, the Harbor Freight 12-inch sander would be perfect and it would work great, but I just don't have the bench space for it right now. So but what I do have is a jet mini lathe. So today we are going to convert the mini lathe into a little less than a 10-inch diameter sanding disc. So before I get started, I do want to double check to make sure what our diameter is going to be. Technically, this is a 10 by 15, which means it can do a 10 diameter bowl and a 15-inch long spindle going across this way. Yeah, it can do 10, but it's going to be tight. So we're actually going to make the radius of our sanding disc at 4 7/8, which will take it just a little bit off the bed so we won't hit it. I just wanted to check that before we get started. We just got a sliding jig. We're going to use this to create our circular disc out of 3/4 inch plywood. Okay, so just marked here for reference, I've got a locating hole right here, and this is actually 4 7/8 inches away from the blade. So that's going to be our radius of our circle. I've cut a 10 1/4 inch board, so it's a little bit wider than our 4.78 inch diameter, so we can cut it a good circle out of it. I drilled a hole in the center of it for locating later and for now, and I put an 1 1/4 inch screw in here, and we're going to put that in our locating hole and screw it down. Now this doesn't have to be super tight, it just needs to be on there so the wood can pivot around, so you don't have to that's too tight because you can't spin it, so just back it off a little bit until it can spin smoothly, but you want it to hold centralized. So now we just want to carefully cut off sections all the way around, and then we'll do one final pass to get a good circle. So we got our round piece of plywood. It ended up being about 9 3/4. We were a little off, but that's fine. And now we're going to add the sandpaper to it. I love, this is my 3M Cubitron 150 grit sandpaper. I love this sandpaper. Now, this is a 9-inch by 11-inch piece, and I could have made a 9-inch disc, but I wanted to make as big as possible for the lathe. So what we're going to do is, you see we're short. You can see right here, we're a little bit short. So instead of putting it halfway in the middle and then put 2 little pieces on the side, I'm going to put the sandpaper all the way to one side, so the seam is only on one side. That way when it's spinning, if there is any discrepancy in the seam, then it'll be compensated by the other side where there's no seam, and it'll sand it off. So I hope that will balance it off. So now we just need to cut the paper, and then we'll adhere it. This is 3M Super 77. I really like this. It's really good adhesive. You gotta make sure you put it on both surfaces, and the key is to let it dry and just get barely sticky, so when you put your knuckle on it, you barely pull any of the adhesive off, and that's when you know when it's time to put them together. So I just got everything laid up on my handy dandy trash can stand. While we're waiting for that to dry, make sure you clean your tip with a little bit of acetone on a rag. Alright, let's check it out. So I'm just going to take my knuckle, touch it, and we got transfer of glue on the knuckle, so we need to wait just a little bit longer. We'll come back and check in about a minute or so. Alright, it's been a minute. Let's give it a test. There you go, no transfer. So now we'll take our sandpaper, and I'm going to do a little bit of an overhang so that we can cut it away and we'll get a better fit. There you go. And then I'm going to put the factory cut edge, touching the factory cut edge on these two little pieces here. Let's make sure that's on there. Now you can buy pre-cut sanding disc to fit this, like 10-inch and 12-inch. But I'm just trying to build this with the items that I have on hand without having to buy anything. I might upgrade it in the future, but for now, this will do. And to make sure this is properly adhered, I'm going to use a brayer and just kind of roll it out to make sure we've got a good solid connection between the paper and the wood here. Alright, so let's trim our paper to size. Just flip it over and then we'll use the circle as our template. So when we got this flipped over, let's go ahead and kind of locate the ring here. This is a ring that you can use for bigger bowl blanks for your lathe. I'm just going to repurpose it, and it has a big ring in here, so let's measure it, and then we'll use a compass and kind of get it roughly in the center, and then we'll screw it in. So the interior diameter is 1 3/4 inches right here. So I just got my compass set to 7/8 of an inch, and we will try to get a rough circle here. It's not going to be perfect, but we just want to get a general idea where center is going to be. So we got our ring centered to our disc. I'm going to use this pan head here is a number 10 size. It is 1 inch long. We'll use 4 of those. Even though these do take a flathead tapered screw, I think this will work just fine. It fits just nicely in the hole. Alright, so we got this lathe set up with our record power jaws. This is the 50mm standard set, and I love this record power jaw. I use it all the time. So how this works is the jaws don't clamp on, they expand out to hold the ring. So we just need to turn that, and it will expand out. Make sure it's flat. Just tighten it up. And there you go. So right now, I don't have really a good way to rest the item I'm sanding. We'll use the tool rest for now, but that's probably something we can build on later. Because this comes out, we could probably build an attachment, stick it in there. But for now, this should be fine. So let's get something to sand and let's test it out. So this is a box build I'm working on right now, and I've got a little nib right here that needs to be sanded off. So let's see what we can do about that. Now I've got this set up to run at 1800 RPMs. We can move it up to about 2350, but let's just start with 1800, see how fast we go. That works pretty good. It took that nib right off. There's a little bit of vibration on there, but we can take a look at that. Alright, in that last shot, the wheel was giving a little bit of vibration. So what I did was, off camera, I took off the bracket, tightened, one of the screws was a little loose, so this wasn't fully attached to the disc. And now it runs just fine. Let me see here. Let's turn it on. There's very little vibration compared to what it was before. I have some bonus content for you before we finish this video off. Now, what the bonus content is, let's make a rest. I'm going to make it out of wood just because we can make that quick and easy. But I'm going to use the lathe to turn down the tool rest because this hole right here is 5/8 of an inch. Alright, so I just want to double check the interior diameter with our calipers. Just rough measurement here. 0.625, so that's 5/8. You see that? There you go. So let's turn that down, and then we'll leave the top of it square so it's we have some more meat to screw into. So the nice thing about having this disc on the screw mount, it can be easily removed. Just like that, and take it off. We're back to using it as a lathe. So I'm going to stick my block in here. This is 1.25 inches. I hope it's wide enough. It's going to be close. Let's see if it's a little off. So to help line this easier up in the chuck, I'm going to loosen it. We're going to center the center of the wood with the tip of our tailstock here. Just like that. And then that should be, we'll tighten it up, but that should be straight. And that looks pretty good. So now we'll tighten our tailstock up. So the hole of the tool rest is only about 1 3/4 inches. So that's about how far we're gonna go and round out right about here. So we're just gonna go about this far. But first we need to rough it out and get it round. So I'm just going to run our parting tool at our line until we get our 5/8 of an inch distance, and I'm just going to use the caliper to get that mark. Alright, I'll get as close. There you go. Right there. That's 5/8. So we just got to take everything else down to it. So my skew work isn't the best, but I've been practicing. I do better with bowls. But although these projects are pretty simple, it's still always good practice. Practicing getting something down to the right measurement. I'm using tools that I normally don't use. So every project's a good practice. Alright, and to get that last little bit of the tailstock out of the way, because the chuck has got most of it, we're just doing the final touches. So we're not putting a lot of pressure on there, just enough to smooth it out, and that's perfect. Alright, I think that's all we need to do on that. Let's get it out and do a test fit. Perfect. And we can just tighten it up like that. And now we just got to put a board going across here. So I've got a scrap piece right here. So let's cut it up. I'm going to square it up, kind of even it up, and then we'll mount it right there. So I actually found a piece that was already cut. This was 3/4 ply instead of the 1/2 inch MDF. I think this might be a little bit stronger. So what we'll just do is get a little bit of glue, pre-drill our holes, and screw it into the block of wood. This is just a little countersink bit. I think it's a number 6, and I'm using 1 1/4 inch construction screws to hold it in. They're a little stronger than using drywall screws, so I like to have the construction screws on hand. The key is to get this as close as the disc to possible, That way it will support any of the fibers when it's coming down. Or if you're really worried about the fibers, you want it to sand in the other direction, which is this side, so that it is sanding up. Just depends on which side of the wood you want to save, because one side's going to be pulling the exit fibers up, and one's going to be pushing it down. So if you're doing it on this side, half of the disc, then the fibers will be supported by the rest. So we're going to get it real close. And it got a lot secure than it was before, being on the tool rest. This is a lot more secure. I love these type of projects where we can incorporate tools that we already have into a new tool that's useful. Now, if I was going to have a production setup, a 12-inch might help speed things along if I was doing a lot of lathe work and sanding at the same time. But for right now, as much as I do, this 10-inch disc just works perfect, and it's easy to set up, so it's not going to take a lot of changing between lathe work and sanding disc. So I'd love to hear how you're using other tools in your shop for other purposes, safely, let's say. Let me know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time. And if you'd like to see more videos like the one that you just saw, you can check here and here. And remember the ABCs of making. Always be creating. Till next time.